a number of the suggestions that came out of that discussions, focusing on fire, focusing on EMS, recognizing multi-municipal authorities, multi-county options, level of service, response times, protecting the existing authorities, managing volunteer nonprofits and for-profits simultaneously, you know, an opt-out language, a number of things that we had discussed, and including that all critical component funding. And as was sent out last night, the Kearney Killian revised proposal reflects a number of the changes, a number of the suggestions that came out of that first roundtable. If you haven't had a time to digest that yet, Sam Arnold from Senator Carney's office is on the line here and can highlight some of the changes on that front. We can go into that a little bit more detail as we go forward. What I really appreciate the most is the folks that were on the first call are still on here for the second round. So thank you for your continued interest. Today we have the municipal associations representing cities, boroughs, first-class townships, and second-class townships. And I'm looking forward to their ongoing participation with this issue. Like we did at the first roundtable, I'm going to recognize each of you to make an opening statement. Please keep it, you know, brief, two to 3 minutes, please, and then we'll open up to discussion after everybody's given their opening remarks. And please raise your hand, and I'll do my best to recognize you. Ultimately, if I'm not recognizing you, feel free to shout out at that point. But we're going to go ahead. Noah Irwin from Senator Iovina's office. I didn't see him on the call yet. Noah, are you on there? If not, we'll go right to Senator Carney's office. We have both Sarah and Sam from Senator Carney's office. Sarah, do you want to start off and then go right to Sam?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sarah McCullough, Senator Carney's Chief of Staff, and I'm really glad to be here and be part of the discussion. I'll yield any other time to Sam. He's doing the left.
Hey everyone, it's good to see you all. Nate, thank you very much for organizing this second roundtable. I'm looking forward to hearing folks' feedback and ideas. I'll just kind of give a brief overview of where we're coming from here. Some of you have heard me say this a couple times now, you know, the essential concept features here we're talking about is creating an optional tool in the toolbox for supporting EMS and fire. You know, we're really thinking about these as countywide or regional tools that are flexible and customizable to the local county needs and desires. You know, we're envisioning them doing shared services like administrative or HR support, helping out with fundraising and financing, being able to do some sort of centralized recruiting or PR support, or if it's desired to do greater regional coordination. And you know, the Authorities Act provides a way to resource all of that and actually give the resources that the folks need to have that conversation. So, you know, thinking about it as a shared service is always kind of been there for us. As Nate mentioned, we did make a couple tweaks to the draft to make the opt-out right of municipalities very explicit. We still need to add in the part about multi-county authorities. And I have a few ideas about how to work with multi-municipal authorities while still being regional and equitable and not allowing for too much fragmentation and smattering of these new authorities all over the place. Also still need to work out ideas for how municipalities influence or are incorporated into the governance structure of these as well. So I have a couple ideas there that I'm interested to see on. Nate, discussion, I might be able to share a couple slides with the idea. I wasn't able to get a presentation prepped in time to email it out to the group, but I do have some if that's appropriate later.
Thank you, Sam. And I see Noah is on the line there. Noah, do you want to make any statement?
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Nate, for pulling this together. My name's Noah Irwin, Senator Iovino's executive director for the committee on the Democratic side. Just want to thank everyone for coming and coming together this morning. Really appreciate and thought the conversations last time were very productive. So looking forward to a good conversation today. And thanks again to Senator Kearney and Killian's office for taking the lead on this legislation.
Thanks, Noah. Next, I'd like to recognize Krista Hare from Senator Killian's office. Krista, are you on the line? If not, we'll go. Chris Ramsey, are you on the line from Senator Baker's office?
I am. Do you hear that?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm not going to talk much. Our interest is real. It's stemming from what's happening with EMS services in our district, in the senator's district, and this is a worthwhile effort that is going in uncharted waters. And the really positive sign is that this dialogue is continuing, and there's a broadening group of stakeholders that are listening and contributing. And I think this is an opportunity that not only will be helpful, in all parts of the state, but it's showing that we can act on the good work from the folks that participate in the SR6 and report and take steps to meet those goals. So thanks to all for being here.
Thanks, Chris. Next, we'll recognize the County Commissioners Association. We have Lisa Schaefer, the executive director, as well as a number of folks affiliated with the County Commissioners Association. But Lisa, go ahead.
I will defer to Commissioner Hamilton or Commissioner Bruzel if they would prefer to make the remarks on our behalf.
Sure, this is Commissioner Hamilton. And again, we want to thank everybody for being on the call today and pushing this forward. I think our statement up front is we're very glad that this is being moved forward. And this is one of our priorities. We as an association, the commissioners are pretty adamant that we do not want to take over authority, but we want to help out in any way that we can with our municipalities and work together as supportive entities. And that's why this has been a priority for our association that are supportive of the authorities being a multi-municipal as well as only a countywide authority. We've talked about all of that last time around, and we're still supportive of only working with the entities that have the front line, I guess so to say. There was conversation last time about possibly taking the 911 centers out of the equation, and the hazmat being the for-profit entities and the emergency management associations, as they are already entities of the counties for the most part. I think we see that as being a possible conflict in the authorities. And we do recognize that this concept of the authority is not a silver bullet. But if we can do this right, I think it can be a great aid to our communities and our EMS to help the EMS crisis out here. Lisa, what did I miss?
I think you did well, Mark. I just want to express our sincere gratitude for everyone, again, on the call, for picking up such important legislation. A lot of folks did not perceive us ever getting to this point, actually getting all the players into a room, whether it be a Zoom room or whatever it may be. But we've made a substantial amount of progress. We've made a substantial amount of education across the state. And it is not our ball to carry the whole way. There's no way any county commissioner or association can carry it. So I think that this legislation, and being involved with much of the legislation prior and now, I can tell you this is probably the first time that we've been brought in at this level before it's written and distributed. So I want to say on behalf of CCAP and many others, we thank you for doing that.
Thank you, commissioners. We also have on the line Tim Knapp, who's had some success in Pike County on this front. So Tim?
Good morning, everyone. First off, I'd just like to say thanks for putting this package together and understanding the need of the responders in the whole state of Pennsylvania as a whole. Pike County is a little complex. We have, some places that have an assessed value, a taxable value that ranges from, $2 million all the way down to, $8,000. So one of the biggest things that we like in this legislation is that no means do we intend or want to take over any type of authority when it comes to the emergency services, but we need to provide them options. And I think looking at the drafted legislation, this does provide them options. And I think, moving forward, whether it's fire or EMS, we can't continue to run like this. And we need options like this, and we need support. And, the last thing we want to do is force anything on anybody. That's why I like the addition of, adding in there where folks can opt out of it. But I think we owe it to our citizens of Pennsylvania as a whole to provide them with the service they expect. And we can only do that. I'm only speaking for Pike County myself, but we could only do that if we have these great changes like this, and we work towards the future of offering options, because that's what we need right now is options. Right now we don't have any options, and we need options to move forward, provide that service. But with that being said, I just like to thank everybody for putting this together. It's gotten a lot further than I ever thought it would get, and I'm excited what the future holds. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next up, I'm going to recognize each of the state associations for the local governments. And overall, as we've discussed, we've heard a couple of the key words here: optional, not mandates, another tool in the toolbox. But certainly we want to hear from the local government associations as to what's important. And each of the associations were involved with the SR6 commission. But want to hear from each of you. And I'll start off with Amy Sturgis, representing the Pennsylvania Municipal League, as well as the Township Commissioners Association. Amy?
Thank you, Nate, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to provide comments today. And also, I wanted to thank CCAP for inviting the municipal associations to be a part of this, at least being able to listen to the discussion and get an understanding of where the county commissioners were coming from in their work on this issue. So looking at the draft, I think that I know that we are supportive of continuing to work on it. We're viewing it as a local option for municipalities, to make a decision. If their county is interested in coordinating this, then the municipalities can make a decision about their interest in being a participant. The fact that it's very broad and allows for the decisions, all of the decisions to be made really at the local level is very important to us. We think this is going to be something that is different across, different counties and different authorities. And it all has to really come down to what is important to each particular authority and the municipalities that participate in it. So that as it is broad, I think that is what will be able to occur as these authorities begin to get started, or at least the discussions begin. It is a tool, so I'm sure that we will not see, immediately a whole bunch of authorities start up. I think it's going to take a while for this to happen, and that's okay, because to me, it would be a very daunting thing to try to figure out exactly how to provide fire and EMS and to coordinate it in such a manner that municipalities can feel they can take advantage of it and that their constituents are understanding it and, happy with the result and have the ability to be a part of the decision making. So it certainly is going to take a while for these to get up and running, and to be able to use the best practices and the experience of those that do begin, I think will be very helpful to all of the others that are looking to see if this is something that can work in their communities. So we view it as something that will certainly take time. We would also hope that the Commonwealth would be able to help encourage this and to provide some support, whether it be financially or through technical assistance, to try to help bring municipalities together and developing the authority and just really encourage the shared service so that those that do start are successful and can become a guide for others in the future. So we're supportive of it. We're happy to be at the table and thankful to be at the table. And we will continue to provide input as this goes along, and we'll talk to our members about it in terms of it being a tool and totally optional for municipalities to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next, we have Dave Sanko, Executive Director of the State Association of Township Supervisors. Dave, go ahead.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for convening the meeting, and thanks everybody for being part of this. We appreciate the opportunity to have input as we move forward. And thanks also to CCAP for having, as Amy indicated, invited municipalities to participate in their task force. Some of you know or may know, I had spent a little bit of time as PEMA director about a decade back. So public safety is important, and public safety is rooted at the local level, and that's kind of where it all winds up getting delivered. And there were talks about public safety authority and for fire and EMS and police and police is correctly excluded from this because there are special rules that make it unaffordable. And I don't raise that to make a statement about police, but I raise it to say as we walk down this road of making something new, that it's probably more important. It is more important to do it right rather than fast. And let's not create something that is so structured or restricted that it will build a system that is destined to collapse. And be careful what we wish for. I know when I spoke with the Ambulance Association last year, we talked about training standards, some good ideas that were in the past, wanting more professional standards, which is a good thing. But those ideas then became the mandates today that are crushing the financial implication or financial capacities of ambulances. So when you had more training, you created jobs, you got more professional, raised the costs, and now that's what's driving. And the solution today is, well, maybe we can reduce some of those. Maybe the driver doesn't have to be certified. So let's, I guess, really just we welcome the opportunity to help think this stuff through. We are echo everybody else's comments on the flexible nature of this being a tool in the toolbox, on their ability for there to be multi-municipal ventures, and that I mean that's actually a critical part for us. That municipalities need to be able to have the ability to join together and make local solutions. If the counties wants to coordinate it, that's great, and we can make that decision. But we also, if a county says no, we don't want to do it, we don't think those municipalities ought to then not have an option. So that they ought to be able to come together and service service communities. This is a pretty big Commonwealth, and there's a lot of different solutions for different communities, different types of communities. So the one-size-fits-all solutions really don't work. You know, intergovernmental cooperation, and I watched the video, and I just want to correct one thing. I mean, intergovernmental cooperation, there's like 80% of the municipalities in Pennsylvania that participate in one form or another of intergovernmental cooperation. And providing ambulance EMS services in the top 5, at least as it relates to townships, and I don't suspect that that's different for depending on the type of government. So we think that affords an option. I'm a little concerned about the county-only authority model, because I don't know what that does to the existing authorities that are out there, and there's 8 of them, and it works well in those areas. So I think that we ought not get and I was, you know, when I was in Harrisburg, I was guilty of it too. Get locked up into the Harrisburg knows best mentality, and you know, there's a lot of different solutions for different areas that we need to think about. On the part of participation, I do want to, and it will seem like a simple, almost like a typo, but I do want to make a distinction between. I mean, we feel strongly the communities ought to have the ability to opt in versus opt out. That they are in fact making a judgment to decide. It also affords future boards the opportunity to make a determination if it's different than the current board. And that act of opting in can be the empowering of the other entity, which will help us comply with the current municipal codes. So we look forward to moving forward. I mean, this is one of the tools in the toolbox. I mean, another thing that would be helpful is adjusting what municipalities can charge for fire, like a fire tax or an EMS tax, to give them a little more flexibility to help pay for some of these fees that an authority may wind up generating. So we look forward to continued discussions. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Greatly appreciate your involvement here today. With us as well, with the Association of Boroughs, we have Ed Troxel and Ron Grutza. Ed, you want to start?
Sure, Nate. Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for pulling us in here together. It's the first time I had a chance to meet with everybody. Actually, we did speak with Sam a bit over in Senator Carney's office. And on the whole concept itself, it's a good move. It's something that's worthy of investigating, but actually doing it with somewhat of a caution, patiently done, bringing everyone together to discuss the different ways that we're going to implement the services all together. The authority idea is valid. It's something that will enable our officials at these boroughs, and I'm sure to say most other local government officials, to kind of give them the ability to have a specialized entity to provide a service which really most of our local governments support, but we struggle to at times. And so if we can develop a mechanism like this, it's helpful. We've done things like this similar to countywide service models, kind of like Act 32 we did. That was like one model that we could pull together for representation of a board. Also, we could do it multi-county. Do we want to base that on maybe population, classes of counties, et cetera? There's all kind of ideas, and I'm just going to go over probably what some of the folks have already said. And so instead of really, just continuing on, Ron, I'm sure will have some comments, some oversight that he's seen here. And I just want to say we're willing to move forward on this, and it has some real potential if we do pull it together correctly and have everyone involved. So thank you, Nate, and thank you, Lisa, for pulling us into CCAP's discussion.
Thanks, Ed. Ron, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Ed, for starting our comments off here. Thanks, everyone. Certainly, this is a great, it's a great idea. certainly, as everyone has said, as long as it's an option, it's not a mandate. I do think that the draft that was provided is a good framework for getting it out, to keeping it as simple as possible. Certainly to keep a lot of the nuts and bolts and logistics as an organic local decision. If the county wants to establish this authority, the mechanics and everything can be worked out with the member municipalities. And certainly we are supportive of a county creating this authority, but also as Dave Sanko said, we certainly would like to see a multi-municipal approach as well, if the county doesn't want to create that authority. And how we get there with that option, certainly there are many different ways to get there. You might not want to have two small municipalities creating it. Maybe you want to have a population threshold of certainly that's something to consider. And I just think that it certainly is a good tool in the toolbox. Sorry for that metaphor again. But what we always advocate for is giving our members the most options that they can have to determine for themselves what's best for their communities. And this here, if you can provide the service, which is an essential governmental service, at a more cost-effective way and get those economies of scale, then I think that we're going to see this as a successful tool. Certainly, it's going to work in some areas of the state. It's not going to work in other areas of the state. But this is, I think that that this model will be, to get it out there first, to see exactly, get a good product, and then maybe come back and tweak it, or run a separate bill to have some of those other tweaks in it. So again, thank you very much. PSAB looks forward to being a participant in this process as the legislative process moves forward. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ed and Ron. Next, recognize the Pennsylvania Municipal Authorities Association, both Jenny Shade and Jennifer Case here. Recognize whoever wants to go first there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. I'm Jenny Shade with the Authorities Association, and we have been included as part of these conversations with Senator Kearney's office from the very start. So thank you to Sam for including us, and Sarah. Thanks to Nate for having us today. And I'll echo a lot of the same things that I said the last time, in that, we are very much supportive of this concept. While municipal authorities really wouldn't be the association to go out and take the lead on something like this, municipal authorities are created to provide services such as this. So where we're called upon to help, we want to help, and we're being asked, and we're more than supportive to help with this. One of the things that we had mentioned before was just opening up for a little bit more flexibility as far as possible. Joint authorities is the term that's used in the Municipality Authorities Act for multi-municipal authorities. So joint authorities are considered to be created by two or more authorities. So we would more so advocate, just for more flexibility on the multi-municipal. So, and with that, I'll pass it along to Jennifer if she wants to get a little bit more into the weeds about the act and so forth. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. And if she's not on right now, we can certainly recognize her later on here during the roundtable portion of it.
I apologize.
Oh.
I had my mute on, Nate. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
This is Jennifer Case with the Authorities Association, and thank you, Jenny. And we really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this second meeting. And Jenny did point out, the main areas that, and echoed very much of what everyone has been saying. And, we understand that the very important goal of this legislation is to create regional multi-municipal public safety authorities. They would have the ability to collect the fees, but they also would provide operational efficiencies and economies of scale when providing the services because they'd be multi-municipal. And even as Ron had said, perhaps, if there's, and Sam said too, he had some ideas on how to make it what the multi-municipal would look like if a county wasn't interested in creating authority to do this, but we wanted to keep the area, have the economies of scale, make it large enough that it would be worthwhile to folks. Would there be maybe a population threshold or something else like that, or some of the ideas that Sam has mentioned that he has, so that it does not become too fragmented, and so that is important. And we are very supportive in many of our authorities are, as Jenny said, they're called joint authorities, and they are multi-municipal, and they can go beyond political boundaries. So that's one of the nice things about the flexibility in the Authorities Act. And so, yes, we very much are interested in being able to just be used as a vehicle for the locals to be able to do the service that they provide, and the authorities can assist in the wayfind collecting the fees and being part of that, and using the authority model certainly sounds like it would be a very, very exceptional way to do it. And if I don't have to necessarily go over the Authorities Act and things, but to just keep in mind that it does allow for, the creation can be done by a township, a borough, city, or a county, and it can be done by 2 or more municipalities. And they can serve beyond political boundaries. They can be multi-municipal or regional. And, the power lies with the municipalities that created the authority. So they can also dissolve that authority. They can also opt in or opt out of that authority, a joint authority. You can have a municipality that can opt out, leave the authority at any given time if they have the votes to do that. So it is at the elected officials level that make those decisions. So that's basically all I have to mention. And thank you again. We really appreciate this and look forward to moving forward with this.
Thank you very much. The Department of Health, Dylan Ferguson was on the first phone call, first roundtable, provided some good input. Unfortunately, with the change in times, he was not able to participate for the second round, but if I didn't mention it earlier, we are having this videotaped as well, right, Jerry? Yep. So we are having this videotape. We will share this tape as well with everybody, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And we'll share it with Dylan Ferguson and receive additional comments from him. Next up, recognize Dave Jones and Jeanette Swade here with the Emergency Health Services Council. Dave.
Hi, Nate. Thanks for the opportunity to be on the call again, and welcome everybody. We testified at the last hearing as well, so I'm not going to reiterate what I said before. Just emphasize a few things. It is great that this is giving options to the municipalities and the counties to help the EMS services. We do want to make sure that this legislation does allow for EMS only authorities, that we don't have to get lumped in, fire and EMS both or nothing. So that would give us the option of doing the authority only for EMS if that's needed. Services would not have to pay into this to make it work. We're already struggling as it is financially, and we don't want to add any more layers of bureaucracy on top of this if we can. It's great if this would be driven from the ground up. If this is a need that the EMS agencies in those counties recognize, and it is a possible solution, it should just be another option to keep that provision of services going. That's all I have today, Nate. We'll keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Jeanette?
Thank you, Nate. Just one quick comment. I just want to thank everybody. When we started the SR6 initiative, I never really anticipated this showing up, and it does really help. I know it won't help everyone. We don't expect that, but it definitely will help many. And I really look forward to this moving ahead.
Thanks, Jeanette. At the last minute for the last roundtable, we invited Bruce Trega, the State Fire Commissioner, as well as Pima. And we'd now like to recognize Commissioner Trega, if you'd like to offer some comments.
Sure, Nate. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm sorry I couldn't make the last one. From our position, I think anything that we can do to help the counties, we're willing to chip in and do. So whatever we can do from our side to help, I think it has been said so many times before here already today. It's not a silver bullet, it's not a cure-all, but it certainly is a path forward that could be very, very productive for maintaining the services and maybe even making them better. So once again, thank you for the opportunity, and I'll stand by for further assistance.
Thanks, Commissioner. Wes, would you like to offer anything from your end, from Pima's vantage point?
Hello, Nate, and hello, everybody. No comments at this time. I'll let the excuse me. I'll let the comments of the commissioner stand, and we look forward to helping out in any capacity that we can.
Thanks, Wes. Next up, Local Government Commission, Dave Green and Chris Gazy are with us, and they've been instrumental here in helping to draft some of this language. So, Dave?
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation, Nate. It's exciting to be a part of the process and see the development of this piece. I like the fact that it is broadly enabling. And it's important for our staff to have the historical context in the development of legislation, because we will be fielding questions from constituents and legislators later on. Amy's point is well taken, and all of the associations have said this. Because it is broadly enabling and consistent with existing structures in the Authorities Act, many of the challenges will lie ahead in terms of precisely what the municipalities in a joint municipal model, or the counties themselves with the municipalities, will end up using. And there may be an opportunity for technical assistance, almost a necessity for technical assistance going forward as these entities develop. Again, it's another tool in the toolbox, and it should be exciting to see this get across the finish line and see how it develops by the individual counties. That's all I have right now. Chris has been more intricately involved in the development of the language and our technical assistance if he has any additional comments.
On my end, I think I'd end up repeating any number of folks on this. I think that this is a really interesting concept, and I think it's one that we look forward to continuing to provide some technical assistance on, and it will be one of those things that you look first at the legislation, and then how you actually set up your individual authority is going to be the second and crucial question. But the light touch in the piece really gives you the opportunity to tailor it to what you want that authority to ultimately look like in your county or in your multi-municipal region. So that's essentially where I am at this point, and I'm happy to help any way I can.
Thanks, Dave and Chris. Next up, we have the Pennsylvania Ambulance Association. Don DeRemus is on the line with us, and Heather Sherrar, the executive director, may also be on with us as well. But I'll recognize Don, who had a couple points at our first meeting. Appreciate you being candid with us at that one, and I look forward to some more candor today.
Yeah, it's going to be candid. If there was changes in the draft between May and now, I haven't seen anything. I don't know if that was sent out.
Don, there was something sent out last night, but we'll make sure that you do have that.
All right, because in that document, counties were still the sole authority, which wiped out all the local municipal authorities, the way the statute's written. And I still don't see how you're getting past the borough and township code issues. the real question from the association standpoint, as far as our members go, is the authority usurping the governance of nonprofits, and there are actually some for-profits that do 911 service. It's a layer of bureaucracy that could usurp our personal governance, where a nonprofit that, like our nonprofit, has served for 65 years, and an authority could be developed in this county and basically wipe us out if we opt out. And all the opt-out language goes with funding. So you opt out, you get nothing. And funding is the issue. Everybody talks about economies of scale. EMS has achieved economies of scale due to attrition and mergers. I don't think we can get any more economies of scale because we've done all that in the past to try to survive. Like the same thing with the authorities go, territory is our revenue generator. So you need territory to generate 911 volume. If your territory is taken away because an authority is put together and they decide that you're not going to contract with you, or you don't contract with them, the authority can opt to take your territory away, and that'll basically destroy your service. Like I said, we have no issue with the concept. It's how it's going to be implemented and how we sell this to the membership, that their governing boards that have served for so long won't be usurped and their authority dismissed. And personally, from my service perspective, I serve 2 counties, 19 municipalities in 2 different counties. I don't know how you overlap counties, especially when you're serving pieces of municipalities in different counties. It's just too many vague issues right now going forward. And that slide deck scares the hell out of me. I have to say that.
Appreciate that, Don. Heather?
Thank you. I'm just going to defer to Don because he has raised all of the points, and we look forward to continuing the discussion and working on making this better.
All right, thanks. We'll continue the dialogue here as we go forward in the roundtable portion of this. Next, with the Fire and Emergency Services Institute, we have both Gary Waters and Jerry. Gary, do you want to start off first?
Sure, I'll start. Thank you very much for inviting me again. I'm kind of the animal in the room that's to tell you that this concept works because we've been doing it since 1981. I am the executive director of a municipal authority that provides EMS service. Does it work? Would it work for everybody? Probably not, but it's worked well here. We were formed by a city and a township, so it was a joint authority. And since that time, we are now covering 24 municipalities, which include a city, 6 boroughs, and 17 townships across parts of 5 different counties. It works. We have a lot of municipalities reaching out to us to provide coverage because their services, but they have no services in those areas, or they're waiting 40 minutes for an ambulance to get to them. So I realize it may not work in Don's area, but it works well here. And I think that's the crux of what we're all trying to get at, is to give somebody another tool, for using that same word again, but for giving somebody the ability to have this structure to use in their area. You just need to build that flexibility in and give every option out there for these EMS services in municipalities. And just to further, we're also contracting with fire companies to provide QRS services for us, and we're managing another ambulance service. So we've kind of incorporated all aspects of what your PowerPoint has brought into it. We're actually doing it here and have been doing it for several years.
Thanks, Gary. Go ahead, Jerry.
Hello, everyone. Again, the Pennsylvania Fire and Emergency Services Institute is an advocacy and education organization that serves a lot of the fire and emergency services organizations throughout the Commonwealth. I personally am an active responder and have been involved in services across Pennsylvania, both on the fire and EMS end. And this concept is something that is innovative and will give tools to the local municipalities that ultimately serve the communities and will assist in the system all over. I have a written statement of a couple pages that I've forwarded to Nate, and he'll forward it out to all of you. But in general, we appreciate the collaboration of all the partners that are involved in this phone call. We look forward to working with you. Specifically, one of the things that we can bring to the table is collaboration and developing that technical assistance and bringing together a broad group. As anything, there would need to be a marketing piece with this and a Q&A and things like that. And I believe with the expertise from the municipal end, from the municipal associations and all the other organizations, the success of this will depend on selling it to the people that will vote on this ultimately and the constituents. And we feel that is a good thing. And personally, I think it's the most innovative thing we've seen in a long time in Pennsylvania. So I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Jerry. Last but not least, here on our intro statements, we have from the law firm of Page, Wolfberg, and Worth. Steve Worth is an attorney with the firm and has been extensively involved in the world of EMS and involved locally as well. So, Steve, you get to chime in on everything you've heard here a little bit, and if you can give some any practical talk about from your end, how this might be able to go forward.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Nate. And this is a great thing to be a part of because it shows such progress and collaboration. So we appreciate being a part of it. Yes, we're a law firm. We like to say we're lawyers and we're here to help you. And we are legitimate ambulance chasers in the sense that all we do at our firm is represent fire and EMS agencies throughout the Commonwealth. We represent more fire and EMS companies than any other firm in the state. And we also have a national perspective. We represent EMS agencies throughout the United States in all 50 states and U.S. territories. So it does give us a perspective, and I'm hopeful that we can provide support, input, guidance, whatever you want to call it, as this moves forward. Because I can tell you, also being a responder in Pennsylvania as a volunteer since age 16, until my recent retirement as a volunteer a couple of years ago from Hampton, where Jerry serves, we have troubles. This piecemeal patchwork that is EMS in Pennsylvania, it's failing. And I can tell you from our experience in other states where there is some degree of county coordination, centralization, those states are faring much better than us. They're able to pay their people well. They're able to provide retirement benefits for their people. And in Pennsylvania, because we deal with hundreds of EMS agencies, we're getting calls all the time. Budgets are being cut, training budgets are cut. When training gets cut, the quality of your EMS gets cut. And a lot of the small nonprofits are struggling. So we've got this patchwork where some areas are doing very well and a lot of areas that are not doing so well. So hopefully we can just help provide some perspective there, because we're hearing it from all sorts of all different clients from around the Commonwealth, and we're just pleased to be here. My partner Doug Wolfberg and I have been involved in EMS here for over 40 years, each of us. So we're just grateful to see this kind of effort and to see this regionalization starting to take hold. So thanks.
Thank you, Steve. And let me just go back here real quick. Krista O'Hare from Senator Killian's office is on the phone line here with us. Krista, I want to recognize you.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Nate. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I dialed in due to travel this morning, so I apologize. And I dialed in 5 minutes late due to another call, but just wanted to thank everyone for their time. Excellent comments. Appreciate the collaboration. Took some notes, with everyone's comments that joined us for the second panel discussion. I don't know if Sarah and Sam noted at the beginning, I might have missed that in the first 5 minutes, but currently we have 10 co-sponsors on the co-sponsor memo circulated by Senator Killian and Senator Kearney. When I look at the list of senators that have added on, it's a very bipartisan, statewide representation. And that's always very much a key when we go to introduce a bill. So appreciate all of your time and Senator Kearney's staff and Senator Reagan's staff, of course, for putting this together. Look forward to working with you moving forward on it. Thanks.
Thanks, Krista. And as we get into the roundtable portion of this, and we'll plan to wrap up by 1 o'clock here. But if we could start off, Don DeRemus had a good point here. Part of this has been about talking about municipal authorities municipal entities. With this equation, we're also talking about nonprofits and other entities on that front. Don, you want to elaborate a little bit more on that front, and any thoughts you have here in terms of how we might be able to deal with that issue?
The issue is funding for the majority of the service. I know there's some efforts in the House side to do an LST designated tax to EMS on a countywide basis. If there's a funding pass-through that the county can generate because the county has a broader tax base, that would be helpful. But for the services, like I really feel for Pike County, because we actually run up there every once in a while, and it's a 45-minute response for us. And I feel for the folks in Pike County and Tioga, because they have limited services with limited workforce. Workforce is a huge issue. And something like the county authority is going to be critical in those areas. It's something that's needed. It's just, we have to sell this concept to our members that they won't lose their ability to run their services by joining an authority or being part of this county authority. And that's going to be a huge lift for our membership. I have to be honest.
No, I appreciate that, and that's what we need to be upfront on right now. Is if we're pushing forward for this legislation, there's going to be some hurdles. Let's identify the hurdles and let's see if we can take them on in advance here. So appreciate that. Anybody else would like to respond on that front?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the concern. I think where that would really come into play in an authority model is when these authorities that are entering into contracts with the existing EMS and fire, companies, is if they're providing centralized services or funding pass through from their service fees to the companies, what are they asking for in exchange? And that's where you run into that level of control. Well, what are we signing up for on this contract? But as it is now, that is just that I guess would be a local decision about what the correct trade-off is. What are we willing to do? If people want a really high level of service, are the companies going to be able to provide that given the terms of the contract that the authority is proposing for them? The municipality designating their EMS service, how does that also alter that decision? Right now in the bill, it's all figured out locally. The legislature is not going to tell you how to solve that. It's just make it work for you if you can come to an agreement. But I don't think we would need to fear takeover of an authority replacing our existing ambulance authorities or taking over our existing companies, given some of the limitations within the Municipal Authorities Act. You can't come in where there's existing enterprises doing the work. In this bill, there's language that says, in the case of a public safety authority, it's if you're providing support services, not if you're trying to replace them. But if you're a shared service organization doing admin or HR support, then that's that. Donna, I recognize we've already achieved the economies of scale. I guess I'm curious if that's universal in every county across the state. But I certainly appreciate we've made all the cuts that we can already and have kind of aggrandized it up.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Don.
I think Steve, Jerry, Jeanette, and Dave, and Heather, and all the EMS folks would agree. There are some places that really need to be taken over because their management is so poor. That's some of their problem. But then there are places where their management is good, and that's why they're still around and still functioning appropriately. Isn't Chester or Crozier in Senator Kearney's district? Crozier Health System?
Yeah, it spans
Senator Killian. Yeah, Senator Killian has that too.
Yeah, I'd be interested in like a service like Crozier's thoughts on this, because this is similar to my thoughts. You know, how they would see that.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about this within Delaware County, where Senator Carney and Senator Killian originally workshopped this idea, there was great interest, but I think there's a recognizing that even if we get this bill passed, it's going to take months and years, perhaps, to work out a setup that works for all, where people are appropriately compensated for the work that they're doing. And so it's a process of coming together and figuring out what services can we agree on putting into an authority to support our existing enterprises. How do you treat for-profits and nonprofits appropriately, and make sure we're covering the full area equitably?
So you want to build the infrastructure, then work out?
Yeah, it's local decision making, but I think the majority of this work is going to have to be local communities figuring out what they can agree to, and where to start.
Because I could see if you built the infrastructure and it was as very, very vanilla, it would give the townships and the boroughs association time to get it out to their membership and do some training on it to help you with that process.
Yeah, Don, this is Ed Troxel. And I'm hearing you, Don, what you're saying. It's important that we do have municipalities in agreement and working together very closely on this. You know, it's probably going to look differently from the Southwest to the Northeast throughout the Commonwealth. So you're going to have flexibility when we determine, say, bylaws for any type of authority that operates. And you're also going to have the municipal buy-ins. I mean, and the municipals, at least our boroughs, I know, you know, we support EMS services right now. So, and while they may stick their toes in and noses in to see how things are managed, generally most of my membership, you know, leave it to the expert EMS to provide the services that they're contracting for. So when we maintain just the good voices of our local government folks and municipal officials working together in a collaborative, either the multi-municipal or county level or multi-county level, I think we can move forward from there. It's going to be different everywhere you go. Sometimes you have to give up a little in order to get a little something, and like the legislative process that we're experiencing here. So I'm hearing you, Don. That's good points. And we look forward to just moving and handling a lot of these details as we get down the road. Thank you.
It's Dave Sanko. Can I offer something here?
Yep, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so just a question for Sam. I want to make sure I understand. You're saying that it's a local determination and local if they want to participate, but if the county decides they're going to do it, then the municipality is deemed in unless they choose to be out, and then they got to figure out on their own. So they don't get to decide whether they want to participate in that one or in a multi-regional, which is why we're kind of for an opt-in versus an opt-out. But I also want to just kind of have a second question, or to lay in on something somebody else said about economies of scale that they got there because they had to. I'm going to suggest that as we move forward, that we may not need to have a population threshold in this process, because, you know, frankly, I mean, I don't want to be the one to tell 2 or 3 communities that they can't make it work. I mean, if they can make it work and the finances work, I mean, let them have at it. I mean, I think the reality is if it doesn't work, it's not going to work, and we don't have to sit there and pick an arbitrary number as to say, this, you should be able to figure it out at this number, because some people can figure it out at 5,000 and some people can't figure it out at 50,000.
Yeah, I hear that. And, you know, I definitely hear the consensus that there should be a multi-municipal option available. I think there, with the concerns about too much fragmentation, if we allow for the regular multi-municipal option as it is in the Authorities Act, is that A, you're creating the same kind of fiefdoms, if you will, and creating, multiplying level of with service fee powers, and that if you're doing that, then you're going to have like communities clumping together, and so it becomes the usual suspects of having the towns that like each other are part of their own group, and there becomes gatekeeping and who's allowed in and who's not. Something that Senator Kearney has been pretty steadfast on is that he wants these authorities to be open to all. So it can't be, for example, municipalities who are all doing well financially speaking, getting together, forming a multi-municipal authority, and then not allowing communities that are having a harder time participate because they're a liability, and it being a well, you can start your own public safety authority and figure it out. That's, you know, part of the regionalization approach is that we're trying to create an equitable, you know, resource that's available to everyone, so that our fire and EMS service can, you know, save lives everywhere. We're pretty concerned with the already marginalized communities, whether they're rural towns or poor, you know, inner ring suburbs, being left out. And so, you know, something like a threshold that says, like, you know, there can be only one per county, or a multi-municipal authority can be formed if it, you know, half the municipalities in a county are on board with it and pass resolutions for that. Came up as ideas where municipalities representing 51% of the population or 51% of the land, so that we're making sure there's really only one per county rather than splitting it up between haves and haves not. And I know, you know, 2 or 3 municipalities could make it work. Like you were saying, the 5,000 or 50,000, that's not to say that they couldn't do it. It's just how do you build a more inclusive organization is kind of where we're coming at from that.
I appreciate that response. I guess I've seen, you know, those differing opinions and the haves and the have-nots, but quite honestly, and maybe we're about to enter a different phase in history, but I've never seen that in the public safety world. When bad things happen, people put aside their differences and do the right thing. But I appreciate the comment.
Right, and looks like we're getting into, you know, a little bit of the crux here of what we need to deal with in the end run here in terms of, you know, is it, again, does it form at the county level? Can we, you know, and how do we, you know, if 2 work, you know, how do we encourage something like that? You know, so there's the 2 angles to try to come at this from, but we need to all be upfront here how this may or may not work. You know, if it's a county and starts from that level, you know, we know some of the issues that are going to take place in terms of some that municipalities that don't want to opt in. If we start off at the municipal level, then, you know, why didn't you include, you know, why didn't this other third party get into it? So that's why I'm looking forward to having some of these conversations to make sure that we're all tuned into them in advance. But let's keep the conversation going. Sam, it was also mentioned your slides as well. You know, I included them here again as a, you know, just as background information. You want to touch on a little bit on how they were, how you put those together, and a little bit more on that aspect? When you're in mute.
Yeah, so, you know, we're trying to very conceptually, just like little blocks, putting them together with connecting lines, kind of show how we're envisioning these supporting the existing infrastructure and, you know, giving municipalities the right to opt in or to opt out and not pay service fees and rates. One of the, I'm wondering if it's possible to share my screen. Is that something we can enable? I see it's currently disabled, but I do have a tweak on the slide show that I wanted to talk about when it comes to.
Jerry Ozog, can you help with that right now, or not? Give us a minute here.
Sure.
Hey, Nate, it's Tim Knapp.
Yep.
Hey, if I could just add something while we're trying to get that up. First, I just want to thank Don for mentioning the fact of the problems he sees, you know, when he comes into Pike County. The last thing, you know, at a county level that we wanted to do was take on a project like this and try to move forward. But we feel that we have no choice. You know, I've been involved in emergency services many years, and, you know, the pride and ego has killed a lot of people. But, you know, going back to what Ed said, you know, people have put their differences aside, and you know, we're starting to do the right thing for, you know, what's the protection of our community. And you know, without some type of legislation change, and, you know, we don't want to run EMS at the county level, but without some type of legislation change, or at least some options to allow some funding, because out of 13 municipalities, we only have 1 or 2 that are going to be able to ultimately fund an EMS system, and they do at this time. Without these options and this group moving forward, which has been remarkable how we move forward, by the way. I just want to thank everybody. We're not going to be able to solve the problem. I mean, if COVID did anything, it exposed our problems in the fire and EMS world. I mean, look what the Department of EMS did just by laxing the standards. I mean, basically, they were taking anybody that hasn't been EMT for 10 years and making it, you know, you pretty much get your EMT the next day. So they seen the problem. So moving forward, I don't think it's about control or, you know, I want to do this and this one don't want to do that. I think it's more about, you know, what we need to do to help the people in our communities. And you're not going to find a simple one size fits all from, you know, southern Pennsylvania to northeastern Pennsylvania. One design is not going to work for everybody. But I just like to reiterate, I just like to thank everybody for seeing the need and moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. It looks like, Sam, you might have the ability to put that up now.
Yep. Okay. Let's see if everyone can see that. Don, I hope this doesn't spook you at all. These are just ideas. But the kind of one of the questions we're grappling right now about incorporating municipalities into the governance structure, if a county incorporates it, or allowing for multi-municipal option, is talking about how do we get that balance so everyone can get to yes. So there's a couple ideas out there right now about you know, governance structures as it is in the Municipal Authorities Act now. County appoints board members. Municipalities don't have a say formally in that process. If you wanted to have them make a formal, you know, have a formal say in that process, then I think there are a couple options that could be explored. You could have a majority of the municipalities approve the bylaws of the authority, which gives them customizable and democratic control over the entire governance structure, with the exception of the statutory requirements of the authority. And so that it doesn't in statute tell them what powers they have, but it certainly means that the municipalities within a county get to control the structure of the organization and reserve their rights, whatever they think those rights should look like there. A county could nominate a portion of the board members, or municipal members could appoint a portion of the board members. We could try to write that into statute somehow if there's a right split. That might be tricky because the split of county and municipal members might be different in different counties. And then it could be kind of like the Senate's confirmation process is like county nominates board members and the municipal members of the authority could, vote on them and approve them by majority. So that the county's picking folks that the municipalities feel represent their interests. So those are a couple ideas out there. I have another slide, I guess, but I will, yeah, I'll actually do the next slide just in case, because I want to be conscious of time. There are a couple ideas about how to do a municipal, a joint authority, a multi-municipal one, while still trying to make them reasonable and open. If the county doesn't want to do an authority, the municipalities should have the ability to create their own authority. But if we don't want to split up the county into a lot of different factions, perhaps just having at least 51% of the municipalities need to pass resolutions to incorporate a joint authority, or different variations on that. So at least 51% of the municipalities representing at least 51% of the population, or the geographic area, or both. Or just setting no requirements for incorporations, but limiting the number of authorities per county, and making sure that they are not gatekeeping or trying to keep anyone out who they might not want to have to deal with the unique problems of that community. So those are some of the ideas that have been batted around. I'm curious to see if people hate them or not. I know some of them might make it more complicated or complex to start one of these things, but when you're adding in an extra layer of representation, you couldn't get more parties to the table to say, yes, I feel like I can be properly represented here. So there's also an argument that a more complicated process will have a more holistic and greater buy-in to make it successful in the long run too.
Thanks, Sam. You spelled it out pretty good with a couple different options here to go in. If there's a county initiated one, and then to have a countywide authority, and then have a municipal initiated countywide authority, and then also the multi-municipal aspect here as well. So that's going to be the area that we continue to talk forward here, at least from my perspective on that front. But anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, Nate, this is Ed Troxel of the Boroughs. And we did have a good discussion with Sam regarding a lot of these ways to incorporate it. And I think a lot of them are reasonable. I would strongly support these type mechanisms. As we continue to go down the road, I know we'll have to look at you got the broad framework. We'll have to look at the technical aspects, percentage-wise, kind of similar to, like, here I am hearkening back to Act 32, that we did, dealing with a board that works at the county level or something like that, or multi-regionally. But I think we really need to take that serious. A lot of what Sam has this, how to incorporate these. and having that versatility, what'll work best here, what'll work best there, and then having the municipals and get to the granular level and their support. Once we can do that, I think we can kind of guarantee the success at each operation that's formed.
Anyone else?
Nate, it's Gary. Can I chime in?
Yes.
So I think it's important to keep in mind that the people that we're trying to help are probably the services who are the smallest services and the counties with the I don't want to say the poorest service, but the poorest coverage. So I think the more restrictions that we put on those, the harder it's going to be to prop those counties, those municipalities, and those services up. I think it's important to remember that there's already 8 municipal authorities out there, so obviously it's able to be done under the Municipal Authorities Act. Does the Act need tweak to make this better? Absolutely. There are a lot of things within this Act that need to make it add a better funding stream and add better language for what is an authority for EMS and what isn't. But I think if you get too restrictive, you're actually not going to help the people that you're intending to help, which are these smaller counties and the smaller services. Quite frankly, what I think is that you're going to see these authorities pop up in those underserved areas and not in the areas where they've got a well-formed EMS service because they have no need for it. So I think we need to prop up these smaller services in smaller counties.
Thanks, Gary. Anybody else?
Nate, this is Jennifer Case, and just one comment. And Gary, thank you for your comments. And I think that it probably may be interesting to know if you don't mind sharing with the group about your authority was originally established by the city and a township, and it was created, and then you expanded over the years to serving 24 municipalities. And how did that happen, or how did they become interested in your service? And it was amicable and folks wanted to be part of that. And so is there any anecdotal that you can share with us about how that kind of occurred?
Sure. So AMED, the name AMED, was originally a Altoona Hospital service that was created in the late 60s by the local hospital in town. Now, there were 2 hospitals in Altoona, but the Altoona Hospital created it in response to very poor service. They ran it from 1969 until 1981, but there was always a tension between the 2 hospitals, and there was this struggle of, because the Altoona Hospital had the ambulance service, they were getting all the patients, the referrals were going there, so it was a struggle back and forth. The Altoona Hospital is actually the one that recommended it to be formed as an authority. So the city of Altoona and Logan Township, which is basically the donut surrounding the city of Altoona, agreed to go form a joint authority. All of the assets and the personnel from the hospital service moved to the authority. That operated for several years in its structure, but as the EMS Act came in and regulations changed, the services through the other adjoining political subdivisions, many of those ambulance services couldn't survive anymore. And as a matter of fact, 2 of the ambulance services actually came to AMED and asked them to take over their service and provide service in their communities. It wasn't the municipalities, it was actually the ambulance services because they couldn't afford to do it. On the other hand, we've had some municipalities who come to us because they just can't get good service. There were some of them who were waiting 40, 45 minutes. 2 of those had services that went out of operation. One was closed up by the IRS for not paying their taxes. Another one just didn't bother to renew their licensure. So they had the ability to, they had an option to come in and join the authority. We have an ambulance service that we're managing currently that was struggling management-wise, was struggling to get personnel in, and they asked us to take over their management for them. And that's been working very well. One of the other aspects that we've been doing is about 3-4 years ago, for many of you who don't know, the quick response service was a service under the Department of Health. It was a voluntary certification. It was many of the fire departments provided that. When they changed the licensure requirements, it changed and made QRS services become licensed. Well, that meant that they had to have a medical director and they had to provide 24-hour staffing. Many of those were not able to meet those requirements. And that left a big void in some of these further areas. So we came up with a way to contract with the fire departments to be able to provide quick response service under our EMS license. So the joy of being an authority is that we have this flexibility to do all of these different things, meaning to be able to provide service directly, to be able to subcontract another ambulance service to be able to provide the service for us, to be able to manage another service, to be able to subcontract to the fire companies to be able to provide service. So I'm just kind of fearful that if you put too many restrictions on, you break the flexibility that you're really looking for. And I hope that that kind of answers your questions and gives a didactic of where we've gone from and where we're going to. But like I said, we're actually providing coverage in 5 different counties. And we've never had a struggle going across county lines, and we've never had a struggle with a municipality.
Thanks, Gary. All fair points.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
Yeah, very helpful. We've got about 5 minutes left. Anybody else want to make any closing remarks here, or any statements here as we get ready to wrap up?
Dave Sanko, just a quick question, actually a follow-up maybe to Gary. And I'll be a non-lawyer for a moment here, has something changed in the law since you all were reformed that what you've created in your area could not be replicated or recreated in other parts of the Commonwealth today?
Dave, that's a very good question, because I can't tell you what the Municipal Authorities Act looked like back in 1981 when they created this. But I don't see why it couldn't. Now, I do tell you that we are in the process of building a new building, that kind of stuff, and we actually used the power of eminent domain to get a couple properties to build a building. And the fact that EMS is not listed on the list of things that an authority can be formed to do has been called into question. The judge overruled it, but again, I think it's just one of those tweaks that needs to be added to the Authorities Act to kind of close that door, if you will.
And Dave, this is Jennifer Case. I agree with Gary. The Authorities Act does talk about hospitals and services, and I think that some folks could say they could hang their hat on that as one of the powers of an authority, but it's just not quite maybe clear enough that, that ambulance services would be part of a hospital system, correct? But maybe it needs to be spelled out in the Authorities Act more clearly, even though it has been done, and that, some folks would not have an issue with that, but others may. So that's just one thing to consider, I guess.
Okay, I thought perhaps it was because somebody had given me a note that said the DCED manual on municipal authorities says that community facilities authorities can provide ambulance services very specifically, and also community centers, libraries, and flood control projects. So is that they just took a little license in defining community facilities?
I believe that's what was done.
Okay. It's worked for 30 years.
That it has for 8 different authorities. So all of them have been in place since the 70s and 80s.
What would happen? Sam, what would happen to existing regional authorities if this bill became law? Are they grandfathered out of, or do they get collapsed
we would
in?
work to find a way to make sure they're grandfathered in, and can maintain their operations. that would be, in my opinion, that would be pretty unfair and uncalled for to do anything that would make them have to like convert into something new or be, get pushed aside. And so I'm not quite sure what kind of language moves we would need to make in the bill, but I think that's something we definitely want.
Maybe Dave or Chris from the local government commission could weigh in on that front as well. I don't think it's too complicated to make sure that they're protected.
Yeah, you could put in the housekeeping language at the end of the bill a preservation of any authorities providing a X or Y service prior to the effective date of the act, and it would preserve those. Of course, the trickier needle to thread would be what happens if there could be any other authorities created around or within multi-municipal authorities, the service areas that are already serviced by the regional authorities. But I agree with Nate that as a matter of legislative drafting, it is not a very heavy hurdle to preserve those entities. There may, to the extent that there are contractual obligations, there also may be constitutional ramifications for obliterating those entities.
All right, folks, it's just about 1 o'clock here. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody here for being a part of this conversation, round number 2. It looks like I think we should have a round 3 at least. We've dealt a lot here with the EMS angle. We focus on that. I'd like to focus a little bit more, include some stakeholders from the fire end a little bit more in the 3rd round. We've also talked about DCD a number of times. I have not invited them to this point to be on a call, so I'd like to include them on our conversation going forward. We've got a number of things to talk about and to go forward here on. Maybe next time also we'll all bring our favorite drink and we'll have a drinking game every time we say tool or toolbox, and we can make this a fun game here. But thank you everybody for being a part of this. Sam, thanks for your legwork, and Krista as well here with working on this jointly, and look forward to pushing forward something that we're all on the same page on. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
I love you, Sam.
Thank you, Nate.